Hi, I'm Reuben Saltzman with Structure Tech Home Inspections, and today I'm going to cover some questions to ask your home inspector before hiring them. So I'm going over this list because we frequently get an email from our clients asking us a big list of stuff about who we are and what we do before they want to hire us. And what's kind of funny about this list of questions is that it is always the exact same list. I'm exaggerating a little bit. It's not always the exact same list, but almost identical. People ask us the same questions. And so I did some Googling and I found there's a number of websites that suggest what questions to ask your home inspector before hiring them. So what I'm doing is I'm going to cover these questions. I'm going to give you my 2 cents on them, whether it's a good or bad question to even ask. And just for fun, I will answer that from my company's perspective. So let's dig into it. And I've got a list over to the side here, so pardon me while I'm looking over to the side. I can't remember all these off the top of my head. First off, I applaud anyone who's doing the research on hiring a home inspector. If you simply go by price, you're going to go with the cheapest home inspector. And then what are you going to get? You're going to get a cheap home inspection. It's not going to be what you want it to be. So please ask away. Dig into who you're hiring. This is an important decision. All right, I feel like I'm grandstanding now. Okay, question number 1. Can I see a sample home inspection report? Fantastic question. That's probably one of the best possible ways to compare apples to apples. Look at a sample report from the home inspector. The one thing I'll tell you about though is that if you're simply glossing over it and you're looking, oh, do they have illustrations? Do they have photos? Yeah, looks pretty. Okay. You're going to start to see that a lot of home inspection reports look pretty similar. A lot of us use the same software even, making our reports look very similar. But if you take a minute longer and you actually read some of the comments, you'll find a lot of home inspectors use broken English, they use partial sentences, and they make tons of recommendation for further evaluation, basically punting to the next person saying, I don't know what's going on here, you need to hire a professional to check this out, implying that they're not a professional home inspector. I think most home inspectors ought to be able to diagnose and make a recommendation for repair for just about everything they're looking at. Every once in a while, there's stuff where we need to make a recommendation for further evaluation when we can't get to the bottom of something, but those recommendations should be made sparingly, they should be few and far between, and you certainly, a home inspector should certainly not fill their report with recommendations like that. You see a bunch of recommendations for further inspection, I'd say keep looking. Find somebody else to do your home inspection. And to answer, do we provide a sample for ourselves? Of course. You go to our website, you go to services, buyer's inspections, we've got a sample report right there. We'd love to show it off. Okay, next question. How do you define major problems? I think that's a terrible question to ask. What value do you get in hiring a home inspector from finding out how that home inspector defines a major problem? I really racked my brain trying to figure out how you'd have value in this question, and the only thing I could come up with is that maybe some people are concerned that their home inspector is just going to gloss over something. They're not even going to talk about it or report on it if they don't consider it to be a major item. That's the only thing I could possibly think of. Bottom line, I don't think this is a great question to ask. Maybe you want to ask your home inspector, is there little stuff that you just wouldn't even bother commenting on? How little does it need to be? Maybe you'd want to ask them that question. Okay, next one. What training and experience do you have? It's a pretty good question to ask, and all things being equal, the more the better. Unfortunately, there is no standard training program for home inspectors throughout most of the country. It's going to be kind of a crapshoot. Home inspectors will take, they should take a lot of continuing education courses, somewhere around 20 hours a year at minimum, just for continuing education. Maybe your home inspector will have gone through some type of formal training program. It might last a few weeks. Here at Structure Tech, we have our own internal training program. It lasts approximately 6 months. It's one of the most rigorous and involved training programs I have ever heard of. So we have our own. And then as far as experience goes, it's nice to know that you're not working with someone who's a complete rookie. A lot of home inspectors will put on their websites, 5 years in this field. And they're kind of being fuzzy with that term. What does field mean? Well, it means that they spent some time selling this, that, or the other. Maybe they were selling roofs to people, and they're kind of in the home improvement field. They weren't actually home inspectors. So look out for tricky language like that. I can tell you at Structure Tech, the average amount of time that any of our inspectors have been inspecting is 6.5 years. I just went through all the numbers, and I'm not including myself, and I'm not including my dad. If I were to include us, we would totally skew those numbers. It'd be way higher. But just for the average home inspector on my team, as of today, 6.5 years is where we're at. All right, next question. Can I come to the home inspection? I guess that's a fair question. I can't imagine any home inspector would say you can't come to the home inspection, but I guess it doesn't hurt to ask. For us, we encourage our clients to come to the inspection. We typically encourage them to come for the last hour. We like to be in the house by ourselves, uninterrupted, no distractions for several hours before our clients show up. But if our clients want to come early and take measurements, do all that, we don't have a problem with it. So, not a bad question to ask. Next question. Do you carry professional liability insurance? I hate this question. When I hear somebody asking that, the first thing I think of is, why? Why are you asking me this? Are you looking for someone to sue? That's all I can think about when someone asks that. I think this is going to be a pain in my butt. This is going to come back to bite me at some point. So I don't like that question. However, I gotta say it is a fair question for someone to ask their home inspector, because in a state like Minnesota, where things are completely unlicensed, unregulated, anybody can call themselves a home inspector, and you can have uninsured home inspectors out doing stuff, and I mean they could cause some serious damage to a property while they're there. That would be the professional liability, and they could miss some really important stuff. That would be the errors and omissions insurance. These are both good types of insurance for any professional home inspector to have. Not a bad question to ask your home inspector, although don't get surprised if your home inspector gets a little defensive or even tells you that's none of your business. You can go hire the next home inspector if you're going to start out a relationship with questions like that. I know home inspectors do it. And of course, to answer the question for my company, yes, of course we have those things. We're professionals. Next question. Have you ever written a report that caused a buyer to walk away? I can't imagine any home inspector having never wrote a report that caused a buyer to walk away. It's simply a numbers game. You're gonna end up with people who don't buy houses. For my company, yes, of course we've written reports that cause people to walk away. We're trying to eliminate this perception in the real estate market in our area as deal killers. We got a lot of agents who they don't like us. They think we kill deals. In reality, we've done the research for our own company, and we've spent several months tracking this. Approximately 1 out of 20 houses that we inspect does not end up going to closing for whatever reason. Some of them it's going to be because of the home inspection. Sometimes it might be a lending issue. Sometimes it's the buyer simply having cold feet. I'd love to wax on that. I've had a number of clients who didn't even want the house. 5 minutes into the inspection, they had kind of changed their minds. And then they used my home inspection report as their get out of jail free card. They used it to not buy the house. And then of course I look like the jerk who killed the deal. I'm going on a rabbit hole. Not a terrible question to ask, but I can't imagine any home inspector telling you, no, I've never killed a deal before. And then next one. Do you have any training, experience, or certifications specifically related to being a home inspector? I would hope that every home inspector would have some type of training specifically related to being a home inspector. The one great question that I don't see frequently published is, have you passed the National Home Inspector exam? In a large portion of the country that has licensing, in almost every state that has licensing, they use the same exam for home inspectors. It's the National Home Inspector exam. It is very well written. Well, you know what? I'm not gonna sell it. I'm actually a director for the organization that administers this exam. So I guess I'm probably a little bit biased with my answer, but I will tell you, I firmly believe in that exam. And I think it's a great question to ask your home inspector. Have you passed the National Home Inspector exam? And the last one on here is, do you have any references? I think that is an absolutely horrible question to ask your home inspector. It is worthless, because what home inspector can't dig up a few references, a few people who can say some good things about them? Anybody can do that. What's a much better question, or not even a question, a better piece of research, is to go online and look at reviews. Look on Google, look on Angie, look on, what else do we got? Yelp. Look at all these different places and see what people have to say about that home inspector. And for the bad reviews, see what the home inspector had to say about bad reviews. It tells you a lot about their emotional IQ, how they end up responding to negative feedback. You're in business long enough, you're going to get negative feedback. I don't care who you are. Okay, that concludes the list. Hope this wasn't too boring with me just monologuing at the camera, but I had to address some of these. And next time, we'll probably talk about some educational content. All right, again, I'm Reuben Saltzman with Structure Tech Home Inspections. Thanks for watching. Take care.